What's up, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube? Christian Hanna here, and today is a review request video that somebody dropped in the comment section, and I thought that's a great idea. So I just did a ranking of the 4 big slasher remakes, and I've never done a ranking of the big 4 original slasher movies. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just like the last time, this list was probably one of the hardest lists to make because we're talking about 4 of the greatest horror movies, ever, right? So here we go. And before I do this ranking, I do want to preface this. Each of these movies, to me, are timeless classics. This ranking is based off of how I enjoy these movies more than anything, so don't take this as set in stone to where I think one is necessarily better than the other, but you know what I mean. Coming in at number 4 is the great and legendary film Friday the 13th, 1980. The story of Sean Cunningham coming up with this title before he even had a movie and saying this would be great, we've got to make this movie, horror is hot, Halloween did good, let's rip it off. We know the story, we know how Victor Miller got with him and he wrote the script. We all know now how they're fighting over the rights for the movie, but that's another story. Friday the 13th, I wonder why it's one of the biggest slasher movies ever. Was it because it was one that got the big push from Paramount? Because after Halloween, when they saw money was getting made, I don't know if there was a big slasher movie getting pushed immediately after Halloween the way Friday the 13th did. And I think that had a little bit to do with it. Not taking away anything from the great Tom Savini and even Sean Cunningham for his directing on that movie. There's minor issues with the film, but that's to be expected. While Friday the 13th, the original, does not have Jason in it per se, Pamela Voorhees is one of the most iconic slasher characters to this day. Her performance in the movie is great, and a lot of people can actually relate to her. She's avenging her son's death. I can imagine why one of your kids dying while being under the supervision of counselors could drive you insane and you just want to get revenge. So, Friday the 13th, 1980 is one of the greatest films ever, but when it comes to the great big 4 slashers, there are some that I do enjoy more. This is where things get interesting because I am known of being a massive Nightmare on Elm Street fan, but interestingly enough, here I gotta go with this. Number 3 for me is 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. So A Nightmare on Elm Street, there's not much I need to say. It's really one of the greatest horror movies till this day. It's enduring. The legacy, the franchise it created, Wes Craven's inspiration for the movie. Robert Englund wasn't even the original Freddy. There's so many great things. Johnny Depp is in this movie. But what's really great about Nightmare on Elm Street is, one thing is the music. I think that's not necessarily underappreciated, but not brought up enough. That great score in A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I believe was done by Charles Bernstein. Yeah, Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, Johnny Depp. You have a great cast, and I think what makes that movie so great is the originality of it. I really don't think there was a movie exactly like that before, especially where a nightmare could do damage to you in real life. I can imagine Wes pitching this to a lot of people. It would have sounded strange, especially because nothing like that had been done before, but credit to Rob Shea for having the know-how to say that this movie could be a huge success, and the fact that it was. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, we all know it's never gonna die, so that's my number 3. So this is where it gets really interesting, because I've gone back and forth with this a lot, because I love Halloween. I think it is one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and I also love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think I've even said I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the greatest horror movie ever made. This is tough, because these films are nothing alike, but it goes to what I get more of a strange feeling out of. And if I had to rank these movies on a scale of 1 to 10, I give both of them basically a 10. So making this choice was extremely hard. So for my number 2, I do have to put Halloween in there, and that's really not much I can really say because it's really a tie almost, but if I had to pick my favorite, it's tough because we're talking about 2 of the greatest horror movies ever made. But Halloween, I really don't need to say much about Halloween. It really is that one of the greatest horror movies ever made. The score is incredible. Whenever you hear it as a horror fan, it's like your calling card to stand up and say, that's my sound. Halloween, John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, rest her soul, a lot of great people involved with the movie. Halloween is still going to this day, and that is absolutely incredible. Leading up to my number 1, what I consider probably the greatest horror movie ever made, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's a movie that's really grown on me over the past couple of years as well. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a feeling that I've never really gotten from another horror movie because it's almost like a voyeuristic film because it's shot in a strange way. You can feel the heat, as my buddy Tommy said one time when we talked about this movie. When you watch this movie, there's so many oddities about this movie, and I can imagine this movie when it came out, 1974, would have really just shocked people, and I believe it did. I think the movie was banned. It was getting pulled everywhere. I think in overseas, there was a ban on the movie being on television until the year 2000, which is just insane. I mean, Tobe Hooper, when he created Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he pushed every envelope imaginable. And I think it would have been just as big as Halloween had the movie not had gotten hidden so much. I don't know, because they really are different types of films, but they have endured the same. Both movies will never ever go away. Their characters in the movie are as iconic as you can possibly get. And I just think Texas Chainsaw Massacre hits me more in the guts and in the heart and in the soul a little bit more. One reason, because I'm kind of close to Texas. I live in Louisiana, but I'm an hour from Texas, maybe not even that if I drive fast, and I kind of feel like I'm there when I'm watching the movies. And I'm gonna tell you guys something. I'm not saying there's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre family out somewhere there right now, but I can tell you this: there are places like that in Texas, even in Louisiana, where there's really no civilization, and that is horrifying to me. So I remember and feel, and I know the trueness of what could possibly be when I see a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that definitely adds to why I'm so horrified of the movie. There we go, guys. That's my top 4 of the great 4 slasher originals. I cannot wait to see what you guys put. I'm going to anticipate seeing a lot of Halloween's #1, but you never know. You could see a Friday the 13th or a Nightmare on Elm Street #1. Any one could be the #1, because we're talking about 4 of the greatest horror movies ever. Thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to Christian Hanna Horror for more fun ranking videos just like this. Ding that bell so you know when I make an upload, and also check the description because I've got Teespring and other great things like that, Patreon. Thank you guys for watching. This is Christian Hanna Horror.